Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and this is Actors with Issues. Hello, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends. Welcome to another episode of Actors with Issues, where we talk shop with guests from TV, film, and Broadway, exploring their careers, breaking down industry myths, and what it means to be an actor today. I am your host, Juan Ayala, and today we are joined by actress, filmmaker, and author of The Brink, a memoir. Please welcome Jaime Andrews. Jaime, thank you so much
I
for being here.
want.
Welcome.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
So I absolutely loved your book, so let's dive right in.
Oh,
You were very, very open about so much in the book about your personal struggles with mental health, with substance use, and depression, and all of that. So what led to putting all of that on paper and putting it out there for folks to read? That takes a lot of courage, I feel. So, those,
yeah, my mom would have rather I didn't do that. She won't even read it. She's like, I lived through it the first time. I don't need to be reminded.
uh,
Um, I I think I wanted to get it out because I knew it was a crazy story, so I knew it had entertainment value. But I think I really wanted to put it out there because I know people that struggle could find value in it because it can give them hope to go on to the future, knowing that they could overcome things that I overcame, things that so many of us go through.
and can you talk a bit about the publishing journey and getting that done? I actually haven't spoken with many folks who have written books. So what was that whole process like, getting it actually out there?
Well, this was interesting. I had a big fancy agent interested in it when I first wrote it when I was 27. And I didn't want to put it out there then because I was just starting my acting career and I didn't want it to
Mm,
get in the way, to cloud people's visions of me. So I told her I didn't want to publish it under my name. I wanted to do it anonymously. And she said, thanks, but no thanks.
mm.
So I sat on it for 20 years. And I tried reaching out to her again, but now she reps Michelle Obama and Joe Biden's books.
Ah.
So strangely, she did not get back to me. I think she's doing fine without me. Um, but I talked to a couple of people, they liked it, but the more I looked into it, self-publishing made the most sense because it was shocking to learn what percentage you make of a book you've written that goes through an agent and a publisher. You're
Mhm.
literally looking at making 5% of your book. Now, yeah,
It's insane.
yeah.
God.
So, yes, they get it out to a broader audience and maybe it has more opportunities for adaptation or what have you. Um, you kind of have to do what you can to promote as a self-published author. Um, and I almost went through this one publisher, but when I heard those statistics,
Yeah.
I thought I'd wing it.
Yeah. Cents on the dollar. I mean, it's like residuals with TV. It's like the show's making how much in ad money and you get a drop in the bucket
Oh
compared to
yeah.
what they
Oh
get.
yeah.
Oh boy. Well, you know, it's a little disheartening to hear things like that because it's like, oh, so it's the same everywhere. It's not just like on camera entertainment. It's it's everywhere like that. It's so frustrating.
And musicians, what with
Oh,
Spotify, what do they get? Fractions of
yeah.
cents. The world was not made for artists, and we're all accepting of whatever we can get because we're grateful to be able to get to do it.
Yeah. You'd think that, after COVID and how much art people consumed during that time being locked in at home, that we would come out of it with a greater appreciation for artists and all of that. And that's not been the case. I mean, we just finished being on strike for what, 6 months, it felt like.
Mhm.
It's just, not to be a pessimist. I'm totally not that type of person, but it feels like sort of like fighting a losing battle. But it's like we'll take what we can get. I'm happy that we struck and that things happened the way they did. I feel like the big companies sort of learned their lessons and whatnot. But
Well, we'll
um,
see when it comes down to AI. They still kept a toe in the door
yeah,
to exploit those means. So that'll
yeah,
be interesting to see what happens.
yeah.
Terrifying.
The company I write for does quite a bit of reporting on AI, and just learning so much about that has been really interesting. But um, I'm happy that we struck now and not in 3 years, because Lord knows in 3 years' time, AI will grow exponentially. And, people can do like a 10-second deep fake of someone today, but in 3 years, they will be able to make a movie. So having some semblance of protection now is way better than none, you know?
Yes, totally agree with you.
Yeah, but we as artists have had so many of these sort of like not just artists, as people have had these sort of collective traumas with COVID and then with the strike. So during that time of COVID impacting the industry so severely, what was your takeaway? Like, what did you sort of do during that time to stay creative and keep all of those muscles sort of, going?
Well, I actually feel terrible about this because it was such an awful time, not just in our country and the world, and we lost so many people, and it was so scary. But I really made the most of it.
I was about to say it is okay to say that because a lot of people are like scared of saying that, but a lot of positive came out of it for a lot of people, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I I remember starting. I just would exercise every day in the living room, and I was so disturbed by the political climate that was also at that time that I was inspired to write my movie Division. And um, we made that. It was still, the pandemic was still raging when we made that. We are going to wait till the COVID strictures on filmmaking eased a bit, but it's such a timely film. It's very political.
mm,
Um, that we didn't want to wait. So I and while that was in post production, I decided when something's in post production, you often have very little you can do to help it.
mm.
So I then decided to start getting my book together again and prepare that for publishing. So so I kept myself busy.
And with the strike, we spoke a tiny bit about AI, but what was your takeaway from that time? What were you sort of, was there anything you were relieved that we got done, or any lessons learned during that whole process of, again, sort of being forced to not take any work?
I don't know about you, but if I don't have auditions coming in, I get a little anxious. I need to exercise that. So luckily that's when the book was coming out, so I could really focus on promotion and um the publication itself.
Mm.
So luckily that kept me busy. um I think I'd already finished my most recent screenplay by the time the strike started. um but I'm always trying to find something to keep yourself busy because you
Yeah.
can't just wait for the auditions to roll in. You can't. You Otherwise you'll go mad waiting for the phone to ring.
And you spoke about your movie Division before, so that came out last year and won a couple festival awards, so congrats on that. What can you
Thanks.
tell us about that filmmaking process and what making that film meant to you?
The whole thing was so magical. I mean, even how I wrote it at first as a 45-page short
Mhm.
because there's a market for those. And I gave it to my friend who was like, write a movie for me to be in. And I had so much inspiration from the political climate in 2020 and the pandemic that when I handed it to my friend, like, hey, what do you think of this? He gave it to his friend who is a well-known director in town, Jason Wynn, and they were like, this is a feature. Finish, write the other half of it.
Yeah.
And it came so easily, Juan. Like, I swear I wrote the first 45 pages in a day and the second in another. And there were edits beyond that, but it was shockingly quick
Yeah.
how it came out of me. Like I felt like it was channeled
Mm.
in a way, like I was supposed to tell this story. And Jason agreed right away. He's like, I have a hole in my schedule in 2 months and in a year. When do you want to do it? And we're like, 2 months, let's do this. And so it came together so much more quickly than films normally do
Mm.
when they take the traditional path. And we knew we couldn't do that. I couldn't wait 3 years for this movie to come out, it wouldn't be germane to what's going on anymore. I mean, I think it will always be a time capsule of that period, but especially now, it's when we're seeing the same two men run against each other for president, it's very it really hits on a lot of points that are important today as they were when I made it.
And sort of looking back, what do you know now about whether it's acting, filmmaking, or just this career pursuit that you wish you'd learned earlier on? Like if you go back and tell your younger self.
Um, Definitely create more. That took me a long time to learn. I should have, I mean, I don't want to do would-haves. They'll talk about something
Right.
that'll drive you crazy. But yeah, I wish I remember I wrote short films even in my 20s, and I never did anything with them. Just I should have just done them.
Mm.
I had fun ideas, and I'm actually literally probably this year going to shoot a short that I wrote in my 20s that I think is great. I won't play the lead part anymore. My friend is younger than me, so she'll do it. She'd be better than me anyway. She's great. But yeah, I wish I'd had more of a hand in creation of projects back then, and that I stuck with that I did stand up. I think stand up would have been a great um career path to go down. I think that does a lot for people. Yeah, so many would-haves.
Mhm.
All the would-haves won.
And this is a part of the show that we change it for each guest based on their names. And it's called Dear Jamie, sort of like a Dear Abby advice column.
Okay.
We always have some questions from our listeners. One person asked, "Are there any specific skills or qualities you believe are crucial for success?"
I would say mental health, which is hard, because this business will drive you crazy. So you have to, if as an artist, you have to do whatever you can to safeguard your mental health. You have to have rituals. I need to do yoga all the time, whether you meditate, um, just keeping yourself on an even keel can really help you get far, and not getting caught up with all the rejection, not letting that make you feel badly about yourself, which is really hard.
And similarly, are there any skills you feel aren't talked about enough that would be especially helpful in an actor's day-to-day life? Sort of like life hacks, anything like that.
Yeah, actually, I feel like that would still be the mental health thing.
Mhm.
Everyone talks about the glamour of the business, but not how much work it is, not just to keep yourself mentally well, but to do the work, and how stressful it is to be on a set and you've got these lines memorized and everyone's around you waiting for them to say it. Like, people need to be aware and be calm enough in themselves uh to handle that sort of situation. It is not for everyone.
And a part of the show that we always, it's one of my favorite parts. It's called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, sort of talking about the best and the worst parts of the industry. So we always start with the positive. So, what is your favorite part about the entertainment industry and this career pursuit?
It's definitely working with like-minded individuals to create something that means something to people or entertains people. There's just such camaraderie, and just an elevated, like when we were making my movie, like we're just living in the ether, like this elevated state to create this thing that didn't exist before. That's so exciting to me.
And what part of the industry is something you dislike, something that could really undergo a good change or maybe a good sort of spring cleaning, if you will?
You know what I don't like? Avails. Are you familiar with avails?
Like
Like they'll when you
Availchecks, things like that.
yes, when you're up for a job, they pin you or they put you on a veil. There's different names for it.
And you're just waiting.
I wish they would just say, you're the first choice or you're the backup choice.
Mm.
And then let people know when they're off avail. You
Ugh.
sit there on pins and needles, like, am I going to get the call? Am I going to get the call?
Yeah.
When they could just say, sorry, they didn't go with you and let you off the hook
Yeah.
is torture. Can you tell I'm on a avail that hasn't been let go yet?
Are you
And
currently right now, really?
but it's been a week, so I'm like, I think that's it. I
Yeah.
think it didn't happen. It would have been a
Oh
cool
man.
to
Yeah, and it's always the cool ones. It's always that's always the case. I remember with a couple reps ago, um, I was very lucky that I just had a flurry of auditions, and I had like four avail checks back to back. And I'm like, wait, these are crossing over now. Like somebody has to update me, and
Mm,
of course, none of them ended up becoming bookings. I'm like, well, come on. Like, I feel like I had to keep like, I was turning down podcast interviews. I'm like, I might not be
yeah,
available, and turning down writing assignments because I'm like, I don't know if I can go to this event because I should be available for this, and nothing ended up coming of it. And it's like, was that a bullet point in the new contract? Like, avail checks we get compensated now, like like it should have been if it wasn't, because Lord knows, we'd be. It feels like those, if you've ever been avail checked, you might be due for compensation. Those like lawyer commercials.
I think you're absolutely
Uh,
right. That would maybe the longer they keep you on avail, the more they have to pay you. I really like this.
yeah,
I think we need to be part of the negotiations next
I
time.
think so. And what is a misconception about the industry that you sort of uncovered over the years? Things that we're led to believe when we're younger, and then you are in the industry and you're like, wait, that was a total lie. That was nonsense.
Well, this may be just for me personally, but I never saw anything about a casting couch. Maybe no one wanted to sleep with me, but you grow up an actress. Oh, the casting couch. That's
Yeah, gotta be
You hear
careful.
that so much, and no one ever propositioned me or said, I'll give you this job if you do this. Weinstein did check me out at a play
Oh,
once.
really?
So thank God I dodged that bullet.
Yeah.
But no, I never saw anything like that.
Yeah, I feel like we hear so many, stories of that. And of course, because it's what's in the news, it's what people believe, like, oh, the whole industry is this way. It's like, well, how many thousands of actors audition per year? And that small, still way too high. The number should be zero, but
Right.
of actors who were propositioned or sort of, of who overwent those horrible experiences. Um, but it's like those like sweeping generalizations. It's like, also I was always told by my family, no one is in the industry in my family, but they always said like, oh, like what, it's all about who you know, who do you know in the industry? And I'm like, well, that's not that's not the only way. Like it's a little bit of luck and a lot of talent and timing and all of that stuff. It's not just that
Yeah.
one thing. Like if you don't know anyone, you're not going to make it. Most
Well,
actors don't know people when they first start out.
that's true. And I think you can still make it. It'll probably just take longer.
Right. Those relationships certainly help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. And I don't mean to minimize. I know people have gone through horrible things
Right.
with casting couch situations.
Right.
So I was just lucky to avoid it or
Right.
unattractive enough to avoid it.
And it's also and again it's sort of like, and I've talked about this in so many times, but like it puts blame on casting directors when we find out during the Me Too movement and all of that that it was the producers and the execs and the people in power. Casting was just having people audition. It's not like there was a couch in the audition room. That was
Right.
never the case. It was always people in power being like, oh, well, let's have a meeting in my hotel room.
Yeah.
That's a whole
Yes.
different.
Yeah, that's
But
such a
a
good point.
casting couch, you think casting director. It's like, well, no, it's not them, I think, at all. I don't think there were many, if any, casting directors who were sort of um, accused of any of that. It was people like Weinstein who were people in charge who could say, I can ruin your career. And they could, and they did for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank God. I hope we've moved beyond that thanks to Me Too and
Yeah.
uh, it being out in the open now. I don't think, hopefully, people can't get away with it anymore.
This is a part of the show we call It's Time for Life's Big Questions. It is our closing segment. So some of them are big questions, some are not. If you could have any superpower, which would you choose?
Hmm. The ability to think quickly. I always want the perfect answer, so I'll sit there trying to. So yeah, the ability to recall and call forth any measure of wit and wisdom at my fingertips.
How do you get your news?
This is ugly, and it's actually a part of the movie division. I have 24-hour news channel on most of the day.
Oof, I could never.
And I read like headlines around the internet
Mhm.
and but yeah, for the most part, I'm downloading it straight into my brain at most times. Yeah, no, it's not probably not healthy.
Self-tape or in-person audition?
Well, last week was my first in-person callback
No way.
in over 4 years since
Wow.
before the pandemic. And I love in person.
Mm,
Yes. Give me the people.
yeah.
It was so much fun and so invigorating. And I will say, I do like self-tape first calls.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
You too?
Yeah, if I'm totally because the thing is before COVID, the only reps I had were based in Atlanta in the
Mhm.
Southeast. So and I live in New
Wow.
York, so everything was a self-tape. So before COVID, while everyone was panicking about sold out ring lights, I'm like, I've already got mine from before COVID. Um,
Yeah, because
and I
that's
sort of
how they
had
do it here for the
yeah,
most part.
exactly. So once I started doing it here, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I need to go all the way into Manhattan to read, here's your check. Is that necessary? I just tape that at home. Of course,
Exactly.
callbacks and the guest stars or the series regulars during pilot season. By all means, I will go in. The
Yes.
10 pages, the three scenes, but those very small ones, I'm like, I can just tape this. This.
Right? Oh, I forget it. I used to go crazy driving around LA. All the auditions are at 4:30 p.m. Friday afternoon in Santa Monica, and like literally 2.5 hours to get home
Oy.
to to do like just what you said,
Yeah,
for two lines.
yeah,
No, that wasn't healthy either. So a good balance. We're gonna
yeah.
say good balance.
What movie never fails to make you laugh?
Do you know the movie Frank? It's with
I don't
Michael
think I do.
Fassbender.
Mm-mm.
It it's weird and dark, which is kind of my favorite genre.
Mm.
I think it's so funny, and it's also very deep exploration about being an artist and
Mm.
working with a group of artists. So, and the music in it is banging. I
Is it a
really love
musical or
it.
like the soundtrack is good?
No, Frank, it's actually based on a real artist that was in the UK that wore a big plaster of Paris head.
Hmm.
And so he's the leader of this band, and they can never get it to, like, they have this amazing synergy privately, but when it comes to going out in the public, it just says you have to watch it and you have to get back to me and let me know what you think.
Okay, I will. I mean, I'm a huge Michael Fassbender fan, so I'm in it already.
He's amazing, and you don't even really see his face.
That's funny. What TV show or film do you feel is criminally underrated?
Oh, minimally underrated. Survivor.
Really? Is that considered underrated these days?
Well, because people say, oh, Survivor, it's a reality show. No, this is a searing look at humanity and people working together to survive.
My parents love shows like that. They love Naked and Afraid,
Oh, I haven't
and
watched that one.
they love that one because it's just like, two people and it's exactly what the title is. It's you and the elements and that's it. And uh, the amount of poor folks who have quit because they're getting like eaten alive by mosquitoes or or things like that. It's crazy. The resilience of some people is incredible. It
Yeah,
really
yeah.
shows a
Like,
lot.
don't get me started watching that show. It's bad enough my husband got me on Survivor, and now I'm so excited it's coming back in a couple of weeks.
And lastly, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Work really hard, work harder than you think you have to work, get
Mm,
involved in every aspect of the business that you can, learn about lighting, learn about makeup, learn everything you can, learn about writing, learn about stand up. Like, be as multifaceted as you can,
mm,
because it can only serve you.
yeah, that is a big message these days. Is just dive into every aspect you can. Being not to use a one trick pony, but sort of along the lines of that isn't enough. You want to be able to uh, do more than just one thing. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today and for taking the time to chat with us. Really appreciate it.
Well, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to Actors with Issues on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and visit our YouTube channel for full video interviews. Actors with Issues is executive produced and hosted by Hawani Allah. See you next time.